till I've reached it all. Will I see? Yet don't believe it is those blackened skies and echoes of light that I strive for at times, just to realize that I am.
Echoes of Light is the fourth full-length album from Chapel of Disease, a Cologne, Germany-based death metal band who have now evolved into an extreme heavy rock band. I guess that's the best way I could put it. A progressive death metal influenced heavy rock group, and maybe not even that heavy when we don't consider the progressive death metal side of things. This is very much from the old school death metal upsurge of the late 2000s leading into the early 2010s, and a band that quickly caught on to kind of the verve of a Morgoth or a Death, and added in some influences from Bolt Thrower because they were quite good guitarists early on, and that evolved into a kind of a Pestilence-esque style as they were moving around early on. And I think I was a big fan of that, just in general at the time. I'm still a huge follower of FDA Records, and I appreciated the band's first album, Summoning Black Gods, even though it wasn't anything too out of the ordinary. It was a thrashing death metal record with a great sound. Now, they really blew my mind with Mysterious Ways of Repetitive Art in 2015. It was almost this the chasm-tinged flow of the record that was a big deal for me, and because I was looking for death metal bands that were willing to be interesting beyond records like Morbus Chron's Sweben and The Formulas of Death by Tribulation. Remember, by 2015, those bands had either disbanded or changed into dark metal bands, whatever you'd call that. So these guys were still a death metal band at that point, and they took a slow and steady process of transforming, spending a couple of years writing, and as we have seen The Storm, we have Embraced the Eye in 2018, and that was a record that was congested with its death metal intent because it wanted so badly to be a heavy rock record that was extreme in some ways, and the record kind of goes through that transition. You could see it coming, and the way that Echoes of Light would be as that record resolved itself towards the end, where they began to take influences from early, like late progressive 70s rock as it transitioned into 80s. There's a little bit of an instant gratification and tunefulness to a lot of that album, and it comes from the guitar arrangements. So what Echoes of Light is the resolution of those interests, and that lines up with most of the lineup leaving sometime after they recorded this record, although I think one member had left before, so they were a trio at the point of recording this album. So let's listen to a piece of this album and get a sense for how far they've gone with that and how quickly the hooks hit on some of these songs. There's an immediacy that greets you, which is uncommon for an 8-minute death metal song. Realistically, there isn't a lot of death metal on this record. Chapel of Disease have performed this album as a trio, but it is now basically a solo project with some touring members now, as they've transitioned away from the original Mark I lineup of the band over the last couple of years. So there's an easy heavy rock swing to this album, and I like that quite a bit, but there's also sort of a dark metal or gothic late 90s, early 2000s metal transition that happens on here, where you might get kind of like a 97 to early 2000s Rotting Christ feeling from the way the leads hit, and the way that there's a sort of a staggered beat to the opening song, and the way that develops on the second song is a little more immediate, so they shake that off quickly. But it's pretty interesting that this is it's more than, I guess, Cadaveric Fumes did with that Morbus Chron kind of sound, and it's different than the direction that Sweben took it with their most recent full-length album. So this is very much a unique development in Chapel of Disease's oeuvre, and it's a natural follow-up to the previous record from 2018 in that sense of style. You kind of saw this change coming, but I wasn't expecting the band to mostly abandon it as the other members move on to other things, and this becomes something of a. It's just interesting to me that a lot of these bands dissolve as they become rock bands. Back in the 90s when the transition was easy for a lot of those groups like Sentenced and others. They were like, well, yeah, we're a heavy rock band now, and an alternative rock band for some of them. So anyway, that's not the interesting part of it. The interesting part of this record is that there are very long and involved songs here, which are essentially progressive rock songs that remain tuneful and jaunty throughout. There's a couple of shoegazing pieces. There's a lot of variety in the vocal affect. There's a lot of clean vocals, and it's there's sort of a dramatic turn taken where they're seeking the light within, but also snuffing it out at the end. And I don't, it makes for a dramatic sort of lyrical treatment here on this record, where maybe I need more time with the lyrics to understand what they're saying here, but the important thing is that they venture far outside of the realm of extreme metal on this record, and I think for me, I'm willing to go there because most of these songs are quite good. They're captivating enough, they're well written, and the guitar work is especially fine. There's a lot of very good virtuosic guitar touches on here that reach beyond just riffs and are more licks or hooks from the guitar, which are very much inspired by, again, late 70s, early 80s, not so heavy rock even. Some of it's very easygoing and, not quite reaching for the usual southern rock tropes and stuff like that. You'll figure those details out yourself if you listen to that type of music. I think the thing to say about this record is that it feels like the furthest yet anyone's gone into this sort of old school death metal transforming into a heavy rock band than anyone's gone before without going fully something else. Like Tribulation definitely took a hard turn into their sound and sort of blackened it before they changed it, and other bands just kind of gave up along the way. The important thing is that this record is easy to listen to. It's an easy thing to follow. It's enjoyable. It's introspective. And it's kind of a joy to listen to if you're interested in heavy rock and how that can be related to heavy metal and extreme metal too. So there are little post-metallic edges there. There's some unfounded dramatism in the way that some of these songs are written. But overall, I think they do a pretty good job with it. They pull it off, and they make for an entertaining record. I do feel like it is uneven in its energy. There's certainly a drain that happens. The start is very excitable, and the end is very much resigned. And I think that's by design. But it doesn't always make for it. Means I'm kind of waiting for the album to repeat more often rather than I am really invested in the last 3 songs or so, although some of them are some of the best moments on the album, to be fair. So strong immersion available to this record. I had a strong connection to it, but I couldn't deny that some of the lyrics were a little bit confusing and some of the audio visuals were just pretty strong. I like it. They could have used a little bit of a rougher edge in some aspects. I don't know how long the record will last compared to some of their previous works, but you could easily make the argument that this is much more refined than the previous one and maybe gets to the point in a less direct way and a more interesting way that will stick with you longer and be more memorable. So there's an argument to be made for this record. It came out last week, and it's available you can go listen to it now, and you can check out my review right now as well.
Now you say that I've reached it all. Well, I see, yet don't believe it. It's those blanket skies and echoes of light that I strive for at times, just to realize that I am